Well, I think when it comes to food, they had some particular ideas about what Japanese food was like, what Japanese culture was about before they left. But I think that they could only study so much on the internet, and they could only study so much in the books and brochures they found. When they got there, they found it was a really much more than they had thought. The food was spectacular. When they went out to eat, the food that they were preparing was spectacular. It was beautifully, cleanly made, beautifully organized, and it was really much. I think just really a much greater emphasis than they had expected. Very eye-opening as culinary students to see that kind of thing, to see it opened up and see the authenticity of real Japanese food right in Tokyo. Here's some we were eating out. One of the first nights we got there, we took them out for dinner to a little sushi place that wasn't very far from the hotel, and it was very high quality. The chef was alone behind the counter. He didn't have any assistants with him, and he did everything for the whole group. He was very fast, very efficient, kept it very clean. I think that opens their eyes too, because that's something we push pretty heavily is in the culinary arts kitchens is work clean and organized, keep it efficient, work smart, not hard. They saw this guy practicing all of those things without even thinking about it. So it was just a demonstration to them, a reinforcement to what they have already learned. This was more comfort food in Japan. This is we stopped at a small place where a man had converted his house into a tiny restaurant, about 5 tables, and he and his wife would put together the raw ingredients for us, and he would cook them on a griddle in front of you. They gave us a little demonstration of what they expected because they knew we were Americans, so we needed a little help. But in the bowl, you can see meats, you can see vegetables, you can see a raw egg. There's rice, bean sprouts. All of that gets cooked together on the griddle into sort of a almost like a large portion of hash browns, and then that's cut up. And Stephanie is in a photograph here, just having flipped the big mass of ingredients over to get it browned on the other side, and she was very thrilled she didn't break it when she flipped it over. But it's very intimate. It's like being in someone's living room and cooking up dinner. And it's just really quite a special, different sort of experience than you see here in America. And then, of course, when it comes to food, a lot of things are very fresh. And one of the assignments the students had was to go to the fish market in Tokyo. It's the largest fish market in the world. And select out their own fish and bring it back to the classroom where the sensei or the teacher would teach them how to prepare it in several different ways. The photographs that are included with that are of students fabricating the fish from raw. The shrimp that this young woman is working on are live at the time when she takes the head off the shrimp. They flip and they kind of react to that. It kind of scares the students a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the idea is that it's very fresh. Everything is still alive, and the Japanese treasure that. They really focus on the freshness of seafood. Sensei was very clear to let everybody know that fish does change, though, throughout time. As after the fish has been killed, then it goes through a process of changing. The flesh changes texture, changes color, flavor, and so forth. I think the students learned a lot about fish because we don't think of fish in that way. I think we get our fish fresh from the boat. We don't really think about the stages it goes through. But the Japanese, they take fish very seriously. It's a big part of their diet. We went around to several markets around town, and we saw a big emphasis on Western baking. Lots of baguettes and lots of pastries and things like that. But when we got into the classroom, they decided to show us very traditional Japanese pastry. And this is traditional pastry as it goes back in the centuries. So there were little pancake preparations here that they fried off, and those would be sandwiched with a jam, sort of. And then there was a bean paste that was used to make beautiful sculptural molded items. And the pastry chef was focusing, as I say, on traditional Japanese pastry, which really shows us how different they are than the Western style pastry. I think they started to understand that the Japanese approach class just like they approach a lot of things in their culture. It's very steeped in tradition. One of the things the students do before they start a class is they get together as a group, they bow, and they thank the sensei for teaching them. Now I forget the exact sentence they use, but it's all in Japanese, and of course they are thanking the sensei for being here today, thanking them for teaching him, or for thanking him for teaching them about food today. And it's kind of a salutation. It's also a show of respect for the sensei, and it's the way they start each day. Their classrooms are set up in a very similar way, but they're beautifully efficient. Every square inch seemed to be carefully thought out, and I think they understood that this is also a reflection of Japanese culture, is the well thought out use of space, the well thought out use of and efficiency that can go into each piece of equipment. Not that we're not efficient, it's just the Japanese make it so obvious that that's part of their culture. Yeah, this is where they're starting with their basic vegetable knife, how to keep it maintained. The Japanese knives are very different than Western knives in that they're only sharpened on one side. So the knives have sort of a wedge shape, as opposed to our Western knives, which are sharpened on both sides. And their approach to knives is a little different. They use a water stone and they sharpen them regularly, and they have a very specific technique. All the students were shown how to use a whetstone, how to properly maintain these knives. And the fish market, it was huge. It's right in the center of Tokyo, right near the ocean. It is so fresh. Fish comes in so fresh, it's still alive in most cases. There were buckets of eels wriggling around. There were fish in tanks. A lot of fish that were in containers that we see that are in the photographs. They were still moving, still flipping a little bit. The Japanese very much value the freshness, and if a fish is dead at that point after it's been caught, it's kept incredibly cold, incredibly fresh, and the fish moves so fast through the market that it never has a chance to lose any of its shine or any of its freshness. The students were choosing fish for themselves to prepare in the classroom. So some of it, I think some of the fish were chosen for how they look, but others were really smart about it, and they were paying attention to the fish that they were buying so that they would be able to get the most out of that type of fish, out of that species. But they were able to produce the fish 3 different ways in class and be able to deep fry it. They were able to grill it. They were able to eat it raw. All these fish were suitable for sushi. All these fish were suitable for all the purposes. A giant 5-foot-long body of a tuna, and that's just the body. That doesn't include the head and the tail. So it's 5 feet long already and sitting on a table. Tuna like this is highly prized. Obviously, they eat a lot of tuna, but a lot of it was going around. Also, getting used to the fact that everything was in Japanese. So we had 2 or 3 people with books, paying attention, flipping pages, looking at symbols, the kanji symbols, trying to compare those with the signs, and then trying to get translations for what this fish was called in Japanese as opposed to English, so they knew what they were looking at. And I think that was a real exciting part for the students as well. They were using those 3 people in our group to really, hey, what is this? What is that? Trying to make sure that they had an idea of what was going on, and everybody was very intellectually excited about what was in front of them. This is Sensei is putting together tempura, and tempura is deep frying. There's a special batter that is made with a starch and water. It's really very simple batter, but it's not just a matter of throwing things together and then tossing them on the plate. Of course, the Sensei has to make sure it's arranged beautifully and there's good variety of texture and flavor and color. He has a mix of vegetables, fish, but it's all about arranging it as a little work of art. Tempura is a lot of fun to do. It requires very hot oil, and it's served very fresh. Before they went on the trip, they studied on the internet. They talked with people over in chat rooms. They did everything they could to learn about Japanese culture. And yet, when they got there, their eyes opened up even wider. I think that they didn't realize how much they were losing just by doing the internet research. They realized that being immersed in it is really far more exciting. I think they definitely confirmed a lot of the things that they had studied. But a lot of our early couple of days there were spent touring around to temples, to different sites around Tokyo, to see a little bit about the modern and the old and what's going on in the city. And the students, I think it really broadened their whole idea of how the world, how the world fits together. These are guys, young women and men from Iowa and from the Midwest of the United States. They've done some limited traveling here in the States, but they're getting a chance to experience firsthand, how really different, and how much history and tradition is out there in the Far East. And Japan is some wonderful examples of that. Going down the street, we encountered some a drumming demonstration, really traditional drumming. Men and women set up in front of Tokyo Station to do a demonstration of really ancient traditional drumming techniques. And Kamakura is the location of what we call the Big Buddha. And it's not a small Buddha. It's a big Buddha, but enough you can go inside. It's a large bronze structure, and Buddhism, of course, goes way back, centuries and centuries in Japan. And then there was a small entry. We all went inside, really, showing the past, really helping them touch with the past of Japan and really the traditions and the older ways. And then, of course, went to Chinatown in Tokyo as well, which seems kind of silly. It seems kind of funny to us at first because we were like, wait a minute, Chinatown in Tokyo? But we have Chinatowns in New York and San Francisco, and obviously some Chinese have emigrated to Japan over the years, and they formed Chinatown right in the middle of Tokyo. And you can see some differences, but they are close countries. They're not very far from each other. To see the Chinese streets were narrow. You could see the steamed buns, like baozi, being produced on the street. Street food was a little different. And I think it was exciting for them to see that amid all of this Japanese culture, being completely immersed in that, there is an enclave here of Chinese culture. And those people are very proud of their culture too. This is a Chinese temple. It's all gilt, tons of gold leaf, and very ornate. Beautiful example of the what I would call high Chinese architecture. Of course, we ate out quite often, and the group got very close. We have a photograph here. I'm in the photograph with a couple of students, and Minako, who was one of our guides, and Minako worked for the school that we were visiting, and they all became great friends. Everybody became great friends on this trip, and the students got to know some of the Japanese students, had a chance to go out to karaoke with them. And they were very open. That's the thing I really like to see. The students are very open and willing to meet other people and interact and get to know them. Even though, there's a language barrier, the language differences. And of course, there's a really difference in culture. But they're young people, right? And young people are young people all the world over. And they all have something in common. That they like to go out and do karaoke. They like to have fun. They like to interact and be social. And the Japanese young people were no different. I think one of the biggest takeaways is that even small town people from a small farming community in the central part of America can go across the world and be very open to new experiences and learn not just about food but also about the culture, and immerse themselves and feel comfortable that they can just have a really new experience and have a really wonderful time, and that they get very excited about learning again. That excitement doesn't go away. That's something I really saw really every day when they were in the classroom and everywhere in Japan, was that same excitement you see in a 5-year-old comes right out again when they're 18 to 20, 24-year-olds. They'll get that excitement again as long as they're immersed in it. They'll be open, and they'll just have boundless energy for learning again. Yeah.